of journals actually. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of making a wallet type of thing. And I don't know, will this paper? No, that's not the right color. I think I had seen some paper in here that might be a good color for it. Sorry if I'm mumbling. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this, but I saw it in a video and I just saw it like right before I came and turned on the camera. And so I just really wanted to try it out. They weren't making it with Franken paper. They were making it with leftover cardstock. But I thought Franken paper would be perfect. Be a great way to use it. So I want something to go on the inside. And then I want something for pockets inside. And this may not be the right color of paper. Okay, that one could go. That one would be fine. I think I want something solid. What about this one actually? Ooh, yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. Okay, so we're going to use this paper, which of course is not going to let me tear it out easily. I really need to do some cleaning, don't I, guys? Okay, and then I want something lighter for the inside. I mean, yeah, I think that'll be the inside, but what do I want for the pockets? Ooh, did I just see? Maybe that would be good for the pockets. I think so. Ooh, no, that. There we go. That's kind of what I was looking for originally. Okay, ooh, or do I want to go with this on the inside and then this for the pockets? I think so. Okay. All right, so we're going to use these two papers and put these aside for making envelopes later. If you guys could only see my entire craft room, I should really call it a junk room because that's really more what it is. But I just thought that this was the greatest idea. And I'm not doing this as a tutorial, but I think that you, if you're watching me as I'm doing this, you could probably see how to do it because it's not at all hard. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was Carol Tinson. I'm not sure. I will link it below. She's somebody I just recently found. And so I'm kind of binge watching her, which is really fun. Okay, so those go into my scrap pile. Okay, so yeah, I think I want this one here on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to sew that on first. So let's get this to the right size first. Okay. So this is going to be kind of like a, I think she called it a wallet. Because it's going to have like little pockets inside of it. It's just very cool. Okay, this really isn't cut even at all, so I'm going to have to trim it up, I guess, after I... And I am going to line the whole thing, just because, like, if you stuck anything into these pockets, you know, and I didn't line the whole thing, then they're just going to catch on all this thread and everything. So I do want to make it smoother inside. Oh, this should actually be this way. Yeah. Maybe it goes this way. Let's see here. Okay, well, it's not exact. I'm going to have to trim it after I cut it and get it inside. Actually, I want to do this a little bit. Yeah, let's not trim that off. I think I'll turn that over the edge, over the ends. Oh, but let's. Okay, so I want to fold this. Okay, I want to like center it like this because I want to fold this over the edges. So I'm going to fold this right here. I'm kind of like going by what I saw her do and kind of making up my own way of doing it at the same time. Okay, which probably makes it confusing, sorry. Okay, turn that up there. That gives me like a nice smooth edge. And then this one folds where? Right there. So let's, probably could have scored this, huh? Using my neat little scorer thing. I mean, that's like a bonus. Oh, so I was gonna say, so that envelope thing is $9.99 or 9 something anyway. So it's like I got 3 things for 1. 4 things actually, if you consider the scoring thing. Okay, so how does that look? And then I'll put like lace or something on it anyway, but I think that'll give us a good edge. Okay, now let's trim the sides so that they're the same. So the lining is the same as the side. Of course, it doesn't like cutting through the thread from sewing all the Franken paper together. My paper scissors don't like cutting through that either. Okay. So then you have all these scraps that you have to pull off because it wouldn't cut through the thread. And then it leaves all these threads hanging, which I like. I like. Okay, and then I can use this piece for something else. Pockets or something inside the journal when I'm getting to making that. Okay, so this is the inside. Okay, so I'm going to sew these 2 edges. I've got brown thread, and that's fine. Come here. Okay, so I'll sew those 2 edges first. Make sure those are pushed all the way in there. And I don't want to sew it all closed. I have to remember that. It's not time to sew it closed until I have the pockets in. So for now, I'm just sewing these 2 edges. But that'll hold all this in place too. Probably should have sewn right up at the edge. So I'm going to sew again. It'll be a double line of zigzag. Okay. And what would have been fun is if I had done like a feather stitch or something. Oh well. Next time. Anyway, I think this is going to be really cute, and I'm pretty sure that if my camera hasn't already cut off, it's going to, but it'll just keep recording, and then there will be a part B, because it's just, that's how my camera rolls. I don't know why. It's not my camera, it's my phone. It's a Pixel 2. So if anybody knows how to make it stop doing that, please let me know. It would be great if it would just like record for as long as I'm working and talking and stuff. And I'm going to get to use my envelope thing for a couple things with this too. So when it makes that sound, it's cutting the thread. This sewing machine is so cool because it threads the needle for you. It cuts the thread for you. It just does like everything for you. It's really fun. It's a great sewing machine. I really love it. Okay. So now that's that. Cool. Okay, so where am I time-wise? I think I'm okay. It's hard to, I can't see it. Okay, so I'm gonna make the little pockets. So I want those to be just slightly smaller. So let's get our cutting board again. And I guess I'm going to call this a craft with me instead of a table talk because I haven't really talked about stuff that much. Okay, so this is how wide. This is 8 inches. So I'm going to make it just slightly less than 8 inches. She was making them the same size, but I think that's going to make them too tight. I don't really want the sewing to catch these. I want them to sort of be loose in there. Okay, so that's a little bit less than 8. Okay, and then how long do I want them to be? So I want the first one, my pocket is almost 3 inches. So let's make it 3 1/4. It's like 2 7/8. So 3 1/4 would be good. So this one's 3 1/4. And then the next one, so we've got 3 1/4. And then the next one can be, let's say 3 7/8. So we'll just have 2 pockets in it because this is my first one, 3 7/8. And I don't really know what I'm doing, so we'll make it really simple. Okay, and then I can do stuff to, decorate all of this, especially on the outside. Doesn't that look pretty on the inside? That's very cool. I like that. Maybe I should zigzag there in the seam because I'm not going to want to zigzag here, but that would help hold it in place. Let's do that. And I'll do that on the other one too. So just right down the middle of that. Okay. So this will be something that I'll like stick in the journal, but I won't glue it in. It will just be floating around, and that way the recipient can take it out and use it. If they want to use it for the journal, then they can use it for gathering their ephemera and stuff. Ooh, wait a second, that doesn't quite. Well, I'm not going to sew that one. Okay, now how does that work? Yes, that works well. Oh, that's so cool. Isn't that cute? Okay, and I need to trim this again because that's... I guess I should have waited until I sewed it together. Okay, but I want to do it before I sew the edges because it'll be zigzag and I don't want to cut the zigzag, but I do want it all to be even. I'm making it smaller and smaller because of this. There we go. And most of these are papers that I printed, that I got designs from Pixabay or Unsplash. There's a few papers in here that are from a color book, this right here. I think most of it is stuff that I printed out. Okay, so then for these, now I need my little machine thing here. Okay. And we're going to make a little thumb hole at the top. So what Carol did that I thought was brilliant was she put the tops of them together, even though they're going to be apart in the pocket. But you want to end up with your thing at the same place. So how big is this? This is, how wide? It is 7 7/8, which of course is going to be really hard to figure out. So that's 3 1/2 is 7, and then 7/8, half would be 7/16. Oh my word. Why did I do that? It's just easier to fold it a little bit and figure out where to punch it right there. Okay. So that's there. Sometimes I just make things too hard on myself. So I'm going to punch my little thumb hole there. Isn't that cool? Does that not look great? Oh my goodness, that's really cute. Okay, and then I want to... Don't you love it when I'm admiring my own work? I think that's kind of funny, sorry. It's just these things, I don't really feel like I'm creating them. It's like they're kind of creating themselves, and I just think that they're really cool looking. So let's do some distressing here. This is Vintage Photo Distress ink from Ranger. And I do find it helps to like hold it on there for a second and let it kind of absorb the ink. And I'm doing this mainly, I'm just going to do it up here because this is the only part that's going to show. I just want it to show up, stand out from the other part and kind of maybe look a little old and rugged. So I'm not just doing the edge, I'm kind of getting some of it onto the paper itself by the edge, just the way that things would age. Okay, and it's not difficult to do. In fact, I really enjoy doing this. Sometimes when I'm just going to be sitting and talking with Bill, I grew up in a Christian culture where like Proverbs 31 was like the standard for women, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we kind of went a little too far, I think. And you know how it says that she doesn't eat the bread of righteousness, so it was like very ungodly for a woman to just sit and do nothing. And so I have a very hard time sitting and doing nothing. I mean, like even sitting and worshiping or praying, it's just very hard for me to just sit still. And, you know, there have been times when I've given into that and I've said, okay, well, I'll crochet while I pray. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that keeps my hands occupied so that my mind doesn't wander and I'm able to just press into the Lord. But right now, what I feel like God's calling me to do is to learn to just sit still and talk to him. And there's a place for that too. So anyway, so what I was saying was, I feel wrong, I guess, if I don't have something to work on. And so when Bill and I are just sitting and talking, I'll bring out something like this that I'm working on that needs to be distressed, and I'll just sit there and ink things up while we're talking. And it's really fun, and it just feels really relaxing, and I feel productive. And like I told him, you know, when you make things like this and you sell them, you do not sell them for enough to reflect the time that you put into them. And so it's kind of like, you know, how do you justify sitting there putting ink on something that takes so long that's not like super important? Well, I can justify it by doing it while I'm sitting and talking to him, because it's not taking up any time, you know, away from us as a couple or anything. And so it's just like something that I'm doing, you know, that I'm already accomplishing something. Does that make sense? I don't think so. Probably not, but it makes sense to me. So that's how I justify spending so much time inking things, because I really enjoy it. It's really fun just to see just the little tiny bit of difference that it makes in how something looks when you just bring out the edges that way. I think that's just really pretty. Okay, and then I also, okay, so what this is going to do, it's going to be in here. So these are like pockets. Isn't that cool? And then you can just put stuff in there, in those pockets. I just think that's very cool and very cute. And I'll decorate this with buttons and lace or something, I'm not really sure. You'll see it someplace in another video. Okay, so I want to just sew along the edges here, I think, to kind of reinforce them and just for decoration too. And let's change to a feather stitch. I really like feather stitch. Another good one would be a scallop, but let's just do a feather stitch. There we go. Oh, it's not a feather stitch, it's a zigzag because I didn't actually press the button. So we're using zigzag, not a feather stitch. Sorry. I know you guys all really wanted to see what a feather stitch was, right? It's really pretty. But, you know, since I used zigzag on the top, maybe I should just stick with zigzag. I'll show you. In my dad's journal, I used a lot of feather stitch, and it's really pretty. I think I'm going to zigzag around the rest of it, too, even though it's not going to show. It'll just make it stronger. So the journal I'm doing for my dad has a Revolutionary War theme because he's been studying our family's genealogy a lot, and there are a couple of ancestors who fought in the Revolutionary War that he's been researching quite a bit lately. And so I took some of his research that he had sent to me, and I used it as the basis for this book. So the theme is generally, I mean, it's like a junk journal. The theme is generally Revolutionary War, but it's specifically centered on this one battle that both of them fought in, which was actually the worst naval disaster in U.S. history until Pearl Harbor. So that's, yeah. But, it, you know, they were good guys. Just because we lost that particular battle in the Revolutionary War doesn't mean that they weren't good. And they worked hard and they deserved it. And as a result, they were given a land grant. I think only one of the brothers claimed the land grant, and it was really his son who went and settled it, but it was in Minnesota. And what was really funny about that was that I lived in Minnesota with some of my kids for 5 years. And I was always saying, what on earth possessed anybody to settle this godforsaken place? You know, it was just so cold. It was horrible. And turns out some of my ancestors were the ones who settled it because that's the land grant that the U.S. government gave them for fighting in the war. Isn't that pretty? Oh my goodness, you guys, I love it. Okay, so I'm just going to sew up the edges, and then, you know, I'm basically done. I'll decorate it and stuff, but, you know, that's how you do it. That's not hard at all, is it? Okay, and I'm just going to sew from this part. Actually, I'm going to sew from this part up to the center. I guess I will be catching those in it. There we go. Okay, so I want to sew right along the edge. So I'm actually going to have it so that the cross stitch goes part way off, so that it kind of closes it. And I'm just sewing up to the fold where this all folds over, because I want to sew that part separately. Okay, and then I guess I'm going to have to do this one from this direction, but that's okay. It's all kind of held in place already. Okay, and then I'll show you guys the feather stitch in my dad's journal, so you can see what that looks like, because it's very cool. It's a really pretty stitch. This machine comes with a whole bunch of stitches, and then it also embroiders, which I haven't learned how to do that yet. Bill got me this machine 4 years ago when we got married, and then I found out that I had Lyme, and I didn't do much of anything during that time. Okay, so feather stitch. So I just only recently have been learning how to use it. Let me see. I know that I used feather stitch a lot in here, so I need to find where I've got it. I still mainly use cross stitch because that's just, I mean, not cross stitch, zigzag, because I'm silly. I don't know. There's feather stitch there, but it doesn't show very well. Let's see if I can find it. That's my grandpa. And we passed my grandma a little while ago. There's George Washington, of course. Oh, and some cool things, like here's Thomas Jefferson's draft of the not the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. I mean, obviously a copy. It's not really his draft. You knew that, right? You didn't need me to tell you that. There's a lot of, I have copies of some really, really cool documents in here. Okay, here's feather stitch right here up at the top. Most of this around here is zigzag, but up at the top, that's feather stitch. And isn't that cool looking? It looks kind of colonial, I think. All right, and I'll be doing a flip through of this when I'm done with it, so I'm not going to show it all to you now. So I'm just going to sew now the top part, and I want to sew that from the outside. It's going to be a little puckery, because I don't think that I folded the inside quite the same as the outside, so. But you live and learn, right? I've got to be more careful about how I fold things. That's one of my downfalls, I guess, is that I'm not very careful about being accurate, and that works really well with junk journals for the most part. Maybe that's part of the reason why I love them so much, because I don't have to be perfect and accurate. Okay, so you can't really even tell that there's a little pecker there, can you? Okay, so that's cool. So it's a little wallet that I can put stuff into. I can put stuff in here and into this pocket and into this pocket. So it's got 3 pockets. Is that cool or what? And then I'll make some kind of closure on it here, and I don't know if I'm going to put lace on it. We'll see. I'll just decide. Oh, and then well, it's too late now. I guess I could glue it on. the way that Carol did it was she put a pocket on the back too, which I thought was really cool. So I can still do that, but I'll just glue it instead of sewing it. I'll sew around the pocket so it looks like it's sewn, and then I'll glue it on because I have glue that's really good. That's pretty heavy duty. Oh, I need to trim that a little bit. All right, I love you all. Thanks for being with me so I could play and call this not play. I love you all. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.